Okay, it's Henry again, and this is my, I guess, completion video for the 1/35th scale Snake Eye Maschinen Krieger kit. I didn't do a work in progress video for this kit. I kind of just started working on it and just got into the groove of fixing the seam lines and painting it and everything and doing the weathering, and I just, for whatever reason, didn't feel like making any videos for the work in progress. So instead of work in progress, I'll just explain everything I did to the kit here. I think it turned out pretty good. This is my first Maschinen Krieger kit, or Ma.K, whatever you want to call it, kit that I've ever done. This is one of the small new kits. I think they came out last year in 2017. So these are little gashapon or gacha nen, little capsule things that you get out of a vending machine in Japan. Cost about, I think, 500 yen, so about $5. And inside the little spherical capsule you get this model kit, which you guys saw in the unboxing video. It does come with a little stand, and to attach it to the stand you actually have to take one of these plates off of the bottom of the foot, and it'll have a small hole that'll attach to that peg on the stand, but I just left both the foot plates in there. So as far as the work I did to the kit, first off, had to fix seam lines. I think it didn't have too awfully many. Had a seam line on each arm going right down the middle. Had to fill that in. The kit had some hollow gaps in the legs, just on the inside of the leg right there. Had some hollow gaps on the lower leg and the thigh on both legs. I just used some epoxy putty to fill that in and then sanded it down, and that was good to go. And everything else had some small little seam lines on the torso, just like right here, basically from where this little shoulder armor thing is up to this little cockpit head hatch part. There was a small seam line there, and then all the rest of the seam line on the torso goes along this kind of natural seam right there where the armor parts, and so you don't really even notice the seam line, so there's no point in trying to fix that, but not too awfully bad in terms of seam lines. The gaps, definitely something you're going to want to fill in on those legs to make the kit look good. So after that, I just did the whole thing in a nice coat of primer, and then had to decide on a color scheme. The base color I used, this kind of a sandy tan color, is very similar to the plastic color that it was molded in. I guess I thought that the plastic was kind of a nice color, so I just used a paint that was very similar to that. So I sprayed almost the whole thing in that sandy tan color. A few parts like the thrusters and these cables right here and the hand I sprayed in gunmetal because I just wanted those to be a different color. And then for all those sandy parts I took some gray paint, and I used a sponge and dabbed it on like the head, the chest, sort of the pelvic region, the thighs, knees, top of the feet, a little bit on the arms and the shoulders, some on this protrusion on the back here. And it wasn't really meant to be weathering per se. I guess maybe it could be kind of construed as weathering, but a lot of Maschinen Krieger kits you see are going to have that two-tone color scheme where it'll have like your basic color, and then like another color will be revealed from the old paint being worn off. And just about every Ma.K kit you see has that sort of two-tone patchy color scheme. So this being my first Ma.K kit, I wanted to sort of replicate that and stay with the traditional Ma.K look. And at first the gray was really intense. It was kind of a greenish, bluish gray color, and like it looked okay, but it was really bold. So what I did was I went back and sprayed over the gray with a very thin coat of the same sandy tan color, and it really toned that gray down and blended it well with the surrounding colors, and it looks a whole lot better since I did that. So I think that was definitely a smart move. And after that, I just did some hand brush details, like this little sort of triangular shape detail there, the joint parts between, like on the elbows and the shoulders. I'll actually remove the shoulder arm right here. See, you got these kind of like fabric joints like you would see on Gundam Alex or Nightingale. You got those things going on for the joints. And then you got like these little hinges there on the shoulder armor, a few little details, little knobs and protrusions here. You got these little, I guess, propellant tanks maybe on the back of the thighs. Did all that stuff I just did by hand. I didn't bother doing any masking on this kit at all. I just did all that with a hand brush since this kit is so small. And after that, did the decals. This kit came with a lot of options for decals. I didn't use them all. Got all these letters here. Obviously, I used the letter Y. Didn't really have a real rhyme or reason. Just felt right. I used some of the. I used about half the caution markings, not all of them. So I used the little snake eye decals right there on the front. Y on top of the head. Another Y on the shoulder. Roman numeral 2 on that shoulder. I really like these playing card decals that they gave us. So I wanted to make sure I used one of those playing card decals. Thought that turned out really cool. A little caution back here. There's two really small caution markings above each of these rocket nozzles, but them being black and really small and thin, they don't show up very well, but you can just sort of barely see that they're there. Got some little cautions on the back of the legs, and I think, oh, one more little red arrow over here pointing to this little latch, I guess, where you open up the armor so the pilot can get out. So put a few decals, and then did the whole thing in a nice semi-gloss top coat just to seal everything up before weathering. As far as weathering goes, I started off with a brown wash, did the whole entire kit with a brown wash, wiped that away, and then did a little bit of chipping, just sponge chipping, didn't do any chipping with a paintbrush, just did the whole thing with a sponge, trying to keep to the raised edges, the more exposed parts. Pretty dark. It was black, probably about 50% black, 50% brown for the chipping color. So I've got that in various places. I did a little bit of oil streaking, or streaking with oil paints, and it was like noticeable here in the front. Got streaking there, right there in the front crotch armor. Got some streaking going on the shoulders and back here as well. So all that was just with brown oil paint. I did a little bit of pigment work. I used some sand and brown colored pigments around the bottom of the feet to do some dried mud effects. Also kind of a sandy pigment on the bottom there. Get down on those grooves in the feet. I used black pigment to do sort of a burnt effect around the end of the laser gun arm thing, whatever this is. Also black pigment on the rocket nozzles back here, so those look nice and burnt. And I think that might have been it. Didn't do any dry brushing on this kit. And I think after that I just sprayed the whole thing down with a nice flat top coat. I did forget to mention I did weather the decals a bit. After I applied the decals, I scratched those up a bit with a just with a hobby knife and made those look a bit more worn. So pretty satisfied with how this turned out. I definitely can hardly wait to do more of these. I've got at least one Ma.K kit in my backlog in addition to this one. So and I definitely want to get more in the future. So expect some more of these fun little kits for me in the future. And the good thing about Ma.K is that there's not really a concrete story. It's more just like a concept of modeling, I guess. There's not an anime, there's no manga, there's no live action, there's no nothing. There's just the concept of guys in armored suits, and it's World War III, World War IV, something, and they're all just fighting with each other. So you got a lot of freedom in terms of color schemes and decorations and decals and all that stuff, and they're just really fun little kits to go to town with the weathering and customization and things like that. So good fun stuff. Lastly, here's a size comparison with a American quarter, just to see how small this kit is. This is 1/35th scale, and most of the Maschinen Krieger kits you see are going to be either 1/35th or 1/20th scale. The 1/20th scale ones are a bit larger. I think they're about on terms with a 1/144 scale Gundam kit, so keep that in mind when you're shopping around for these if you do decide to buy any of them. So that about does it for this video, and with that, I'll see you guys next time.